Hey everybody, this is Blake here, and this unfortunately is going to be a very awkward and dreaded video. You are not going to like where this is going. Critiquing the critics is being placed on hiatus. You probably won't see an episode all throughout the rest of this year. There are a few reasons for it, but don't worry, it's not because I'm losing interest. I'm not planning on retiring the show, and I was actually considering doing that once. Before season 4 started, I was getting really sick of video reviewing and critiquing the critics, but I managed to soldier through. This isn't that. I'm actually really looking forward into finishing this next episode because I've spent a lot of time planning on it. Unfortunately, well, there are a few reasons as to why I keep having to postpone it, and the first is I wasn't really happy with the script. The first part I'm thrilled about. I think it'll be pretty funny and maybe even a little informative. But once I get to like the information, I seem to hit a stumbling block. The next episode is Iron Liz, by the way, if you weren't sure about that. And part of the reason is I kind of changed my mind about her videos really late into the game, so I feel like I have to kind of go back and change everything to fit my updated opinions for better or worse. Now, this isn't a big deal. I could easily work through that. It will just take some time. But what really threw everything off was a health issue that has been popping up in my life rather recently lately. For those who don't remember, I went through a serious problem back in February, and it wasn't like that serious. It's more of a nuisance than, it's not like I'm going to die or I'm going to have to go to the hospital or anything, but it was a major stumbling block in my life, and I won't explain what it was, but it really kept me from wanting to do anything, from writing reviews to filming reviews to just exercising. It was a very unpleasant time in my life, and that unfortunately resurfaced even though I took medication to get better. And even though it's not as bad right now, when I was supposed to really start working on this episode, it came up again, and it was just the same thing. Part of it is it really gets in the way of sleeping, and the other part is just, well, when you feel like I did, you just don't want to work on video reviewing. And even though it's fine right now, unfortunately something else kind of took over for that problem, and that my work really screwed me over. I'm not going to say where I work, but I am a night crew stalker. So I stock grocery store shelves, and well, they'd screwed me over before, back when I used to work in meat department. They pretty much forced me to move into night crew, even though I did not want to, but they pretty much said, either do this or put in your 2 weeks notice. I found out later on that they were not allowed to do that, but I didn't know that at the time. I was pretty young, and so I went ahead and did it, and actually for the most part it worked out for the better. They were very considerate of my shift, because I used to go to school at that time, so I can come in at 8 p.m. and leave at midnight. Once I stopped going to school, I'd work later, and everything worked out because I was getting a lot more hours. But then they screwed me over again in that some asshole decided to change all the schedules, so I had to be moved up to coming in at 11 o'clock at night, and that just does not work for me. That's a total lifestyle change, even though you wouldn't think about it, because either I leave early or on time, which is about 3 or 4 in the morning, where I'm just not getting enough money, and I'm in serious need of money. And in the past that wasn't a problem because I am pretty good when it comes to my savings, and I worked enough hours to where I could pay the bills, but now I can't. Or I totally change my lifestyle and work till like 7 or 8 in the morning, which is long past where I usually go to sleep. I've been sort of mixing it up, but I've been pretty miserable for it because I feel like I'm always tired. Generally, when I film Critiquing the Critics episode, I'd start at 3 p.m. and end at 5 p.m. because 3 p.m. is when the light is I could use a lot more natural light. Like right now, you're not seeing it because it's pretty dark, it's pretty late. Well, usually I prefer filming at the daytime because I don't have the greatest lighting situation. So even though it looks pretty good right now, but then I stop around 5 p.m. It becomes noticeable that it is getting pretty late, and it really screws up, once again, the lighting. But now I usually wake up at 3, so by the time I could even get to critiquing the critics, it's usually closer to 4:30. So I'm just not very comfortable at doing it at night, and that's just, I either have to adjust the critiquing the critics schedule so the lighting isn't as good, or I get a new job and I don't really want to do. I've been working there for too long, so I'd have to get something really a lot better before I make that jump. And that's been the primary obstacle for releasing the new Critiquing the Critics. So hopefully these assholes at my work realize how much they screwed up and change my shift back. I'm not expecting that to happen, but I figure at least I'll know what I'm going to do beginning of next year. So hopefully that works out. I apologize for these delays. And of course, if inspiration hits me and I just suddenly really want to get the next episode out, maybe that will happen. Or maybe I'll do a Critiquing the Critics quickie or something to tide you guys over. I'm not saying that I'm definitely not going to work on Critiquing the Critics at all during this time. So, maybe I'll have an episode up soon, but I don't want you to expect it. So be pleasantly surprised if I get an episode out, but if I don't, at least you'll know to wait at least till the early next year. God, the season's been moving incredibly slowly, hasn't it? I think it started early this year. Jeez, I gotta speed up my schedule. Another thing, too, I really want to get back on is during this time I want to work more on my screenwriting. My dream is to become a screenwriter. I've written a few scripts. I don't consider them to be very good, but I've also done a really bad job at pushing them, so usually I just write them and then that will be it. So I kind of want to get back into that. That would be nice if I could sell a script, and then I won't have to worry about my stupid-ass job anymore. And then I could film Critiquing the Critics whenever I want. So if I also cut down on written reviews, that might be why. I also kind of am planning another web show called, well, I don't want to reveal what it's called, but I discuss franchises, movie franchises. I don't know if I'm going to go through with that just because I'm so backed up on my schedule right now. I'd really like to do that, but we'll have to see. Critiquing the Critics is definitely going to get first priority. I also plan on moving episodes to another video website. The problem with YouTube is I really like YouTube, but right now they've been really hardcore when it comes to copyright. I've had difficulty uploading various videos. Some videos are blocked in different countries. I believe my film brain review is blocked in quite a few countries. So I'd like to move to a different place, or at least not fully. I'll always use YouTube, but I'd release it to another website first, by a week. I was going to do Blip, but then Blip decided to be douchebags, and they're closing down my account. So I don't know where I'm going to move to. Plus, it would get more traffic towards my website, and I always would appreciate that. So that's really all I have to say there. Once again, hopefully I do get an episode out soon, but I don't want to make any promises. So just wait until the next year at the absolute latest, and if anything comes out earlier, be grateful. On another note, my cousin released a music video, and that's pretty cool, and so I'm trying to get that out there and help him advertise it. So I'll include a link in the description, so if you could check that out, that would be really nice of you. I also did written reviews of Event Horizon, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and Glimmerman, so read those. I figure just to cap off this video, I talk about some of the movies I've seen recently. The Warrior, a generic-ass title. It's a Korean film. It was actually really good, a really good epic with interesting characters, good battle sequences. It was very well paced. Definitely check it out if you like Asian epics. Killing Season with Robert De Niro and John Travolta. Despite being critically panned, I actually liked it. It was kind of art house in different areas, but it was pretty suspenseful, and I thought both actors had quite a bit to do, and they did it well. Even though a lot of people criticized John Travolta's accent, I had no problem with it, but then again, I don't really know what the actual accent sounds like, so take that as you will. The Tall Man, a thriller with Jessica Biel. It was weird because it was marketed as a horror film, but it is much more of a thriller. It's okay. It's pretty interesting, but I felt that it had there was a lot of unexplained. There was a lot of loose threads that I didn't really understand. So it's not as good as it thinks it is. It's kind of trying to be Gone Baby Gone, but masquerading as sort of a horror thriller, and it's nowhere near as thought-provoking or as intelligent as that film. But it's worth watching, I guess. Shooter with Mark Wahlberg, it was pretty good. A lot of people like it a lot more than I did. I thought it was well paced and some of the action scenes were spectacular, but it didn't really leave much of an impact on me. The original Man Who Knew Too Much, an Alfred Hitchcock movie, one of his earlier ones, did nothing for me, but then again, nor did the 1950s remake. I did really like Peter Lorre, though. Problem with these old movies, I do believe that we've advanced so much in certain areas that it just makes them seem old-fashioned, and I do really appreciate a lot of older classic films, but to me, Hitchcock was at his best during the 50s and 60s, and even some of his films from the 40s were spectacular, but for the most part, I haven't been really impressed with his 1930s works. He just got so much better since then. 42, which was okay, I guess. It was, to me, trying too hard to be too emotional and too dramatic. That's the Jackie Robinson story. But I guess it's worth watching as a rental. Battle of the Warriors, one of the worst titles I could think of. So generic. And the original title is like Battle of the Wits, which is, I think, so much better. It's another Asian epic from, I believe it's Hong Kong, with Andy Lau. It was pretty good. Nothing spectacular, but if you like those kinds of movies, it's worth checking out. I thought The Warrior was a lot better, though. Sorcerer with Roy Scheider. I thought it was overrated. It's too slow-paced in parts, but once it gets moving, it is actually very interesting on a visual level, but also it's very edgy and suspenseful and bold. I'd say it's a flawed masterpiece at the best. I'm not sure if I'd call it a masterpiece at all, but it's definitely an interesting flick. And Break, which I was surprised at how much I liked. It's with Stephen Dorff. It's kind of a knockoff of Buried with Ryan Reynolds, where a guy wakes up in a trunk and he has to figure out how to get out by pretty much talking on the phone. It's not as good as Buried in my opinion, but it's a surprisingly suspenseful and engaging flick that has some, I don't know, there's some apocalyptic undertones about it that makes the whole film kind of creepy and unsettling. I really liked it. I thought it was a very underrated film. Surprisingly good for something that was released direct to DVD. Snitch with The Rock, I just thought it was mediocre. Not bad, not good. He had a good performance, but as a whole, I thought it was just kind of dull. Hero Wanted, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s film, not his most recent one though. Despite having a very interesting story with some interesting characters, I thought it was very disjointed, and it was a good story that was told very sloppily. Cuba Gooding Jr., though, he has, I think, really come to his own in terms of his direct-to-DVD movies. Yeah, he's had some misfires like Devil's Tomb and that Hardwired, but he's also made some surprisingly good flicks like Wrong Turn at Tahoe. There was that one that involved time travel and serial killers. I can't think of what it's called, but I thought that was pretty good. Most of his films that were released direct-to-DVD I've liked, but Hero Wanted, it's just okay. It's not one of his better films, nor one of his worst films. And that's really all I'm going to talk about. So yeah, I apologize for the delays in critiquing the critics, but hopefully we will get back into the swing of things soon. So I'll see you guys later.